And you said you guys were struggling to generate, among other things, decent policy agenda and so forth, moral outrage. And I know that you may have meant it in the context of among your colleagues, esteemed colleagues on the Hill. I can tell you that you've succeeded in generating moral outrage on the ground among the public citizens, the constituents. And so that's there. And I think that's what has brought us to this particular point. And then I also wanted to respond to because we are here does not mean that and I know others that I've worked with and I hold highly hold in high regard in the way that they calculate and go about presenting things on this issue, have weighed the odds and the pros and the odds. And I, for one, took a step back from my push for impeachment when Pelosi became the Speaker of the House, and was somewhat a little bit hesitant to kind of put my faith in her ability and Democrats' ability to push this issue forward in terms of accountability of the president. But I was concerned when she said that, impeachment is off the table. That was the first thing. So it was almost as if she was trying to reach this conciliatory place so that the Democrats could get their agendas pushed through in Congress to show that we're willing to work with you all. It's a give and take. But then months later, when the whole issue came up in terms of time limits, and I have to be not you in this bunch, but when I saw some of the Democrats acting like little weasels and running with their tails tucked at the first threat of this menace, who is our president now, who's wreaking havoc around the globe, not to mention here at home. Soldiers committing suicide, mothers and fathers who worked up enough to get their children through school, and the Army comes with this promise, or the military comes with this promise of a better life, and they enlist and allow their children to enlist into the Army to serve and protect this great country of ours, and then they come back in body bags. I am really concerned that we will miss the opportunity to turn this thing around by using impeachment. I don't see any other way. You said, how do you turn it around? We're trying to turn it around. This is the opportunity. I support what Al said. This is possibly a call that God this is his appointed time, in my estimate, speaking from a prophetic minister's voice. This is the appointed time. This is the time to turn this around. And this is possibly the means by which, this is your slingshot, the means by which we are to do it. My last point, and I know I've talked a lot, and this is it. And I'm going back now with something that was mentioned in Sicko about fear and dehumanization, how it disarms democracy. And it causes people to disengage. That is exactly where we are. And so you're talking about morally, isn't it worth us holding on to for the elections? I can tell you what's for the 08. I can tell you what's happening among folk that I count among my peers now. I'm working on my PhD and I have a home-based business. So I'm sort of in the middle class, I guess now, property owner, so forth and so on. Middle-class black folk that I'm talking to now are ready to jump ship from the Democratic boat. And you know what I'm hearing them say? Heck, may as well align with Republicans who come offering gifts. At least I'll get money for my business, or at least I'll get a position here, and so forth and so on. And then we hear the voices of saying, don't forget, don't lose your mind, and don't forget the history of but that's where people are. People are saying, you know what, this taking it to the streets, this social activism and stuff, it's getting us nowhere. I've got to go for me. And so now people are becoming very individualistic and about how they see issues in our community, even in Durham, where we're dealing with gang violence. Folks are saying, you know what, as long as I can get my kids out of public schools, and as long as we can move into the suburbs, if we can move out into Oxford, or if we can move out into Vance County or Chapel Hill or Orange County and get our kids out of here, then we will be fine. That's where we are. That's the trickling effect that this whole situation has had. And I'm not saying it's the whole blame for all the social ills that we're confronting, but it's certainly exacerbating it to a point where, as Malcolm X once said, on the streets, in communities that are suffering, that always suffer, it's like a powder keg. It's like a powder keg. And I don't know what the damage, what the collateral damage is going to be.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things is this frustration, and I know a lot of us here are also peace activists. I know I am, and I don't want it to get to the point like it has in history in the past, where the frustration boils over, like you said, with the powder keg and violence. It turns into violence. In my opinion, impeachment is the step to empower the public, get people participating, and it's the way to avoid that violence, avoid that frustration, exploding.
It looks to me so often, and I represent the Progressive Democrats of Orange County, and as she said, that a lot of people are thinking about jumping ship, but the folk that I represent are jumping ship the other way. They're disengaged from the Democratic Party because they feel betrayed too. It looks to me as if the Democratic Party in Congress is acting as a battered spouse. It has all the symptoms. And when a battered spouse, the riskiest,
Please, what are you talking about?
the riskiest time for a battered spouse comes when he or she stands up to leave and on 2 feet. The battered spouse syndrome is that you always try to work with it, make it a little bit better, patch it up here, patch it up there, and yet accept the abuse, continue to accept the humiliation, to accept
What are you talking
the
about?
injustice that is
You're aware
happening.
that everything we're doing is under a veto threat? I mean, what is all this talk
But
of?
the thing is, when the battered spouse also knows when he or she leaves, it's the time when he or she is at most at risk of being hurt or vetoed or whatever weapon is used against them. At the same time, we look to you as leadership, and if we're talking about the 2008 elections, where is the fire in our hearts that we can follow anyone?
If you want to see the 2008 elections, just continue the Republicans in power, the likes of Mitt Romney or Red Thompson, then if you can't see that that's a bad course, or if you can't make some distinctions about.
But y'all are scared to go up. If you all are scared to blackmail, you say you only have one or two choices.
Okay.
If you're scared of them, first of
I
all,
feel
Bush
better
stole
about
the election.
proposal.
Y'all didn't fight
Yeah.
to make
Better,
sure.
but not in the way you're saying.
May I
that votes
please
will
make two
recount.
very brief points?
Sure.
I think with regard to, in addition to restoring the balance of power and preserving the Constitution, two very important things to consider, and one of them, of course, the importance of the 2008 election. When impeachment proceedings start, when we overcome the stonewalling, the resistance of the administration for their evils to be exposed, the reason they're claiming executive privilege on everything, once their true demonism is
that's right.
exposed, I see the Democrats as gaining politically and
Yes.
landslides in 2008. And the second thing I see as a benefit from impeachment is the world regard for our country is so low, we're getting no support in Iraq. Our allies, our coalition, the world support for us in Iraq is almost nil. It's because of our leadership, excuse me for using that word, but because of those people running our country, when we start impeachment and say, hey world, they're not us, this is us, we're sorry. We're sorry. Please help us. We need your help so we can get out. We get help from the rest of the world that facilitates our responsible withdrawal from Iraq.